I raised my wife's children as my own from the time they were in diapers. Their biological father was never around, not even in memory. Then one day, years later, he reappeared, and just like that, everything I had built with them crumbled. They forgot who stood by them all those years. And now, as life delivers them harsh lessons, I'm done playing the savior. Hi Reddit. Leonard here. I'm 52, and for nearly 20 years, I took on a role no one asked me to play, but I gave it everything I had. When I first met Clara, she was a single mom to two young kids, Noah and Ava. Their dad had walked out when Ava was only 6 months old. No farewells, no birthday wishes, no support payments, just vanished. At the time, I didn't think twice about stepping in. I was 31, had a secure job working as a mechanic, owned a modest home at the edge of town, and I was ready to build a real future with someone. Those kids may not have been mine by blood, but they became my world. Clara and I tied the knot after 2 years of dating. By then, both Noah and Ava had started calling me Dad. Ava would curl up in my lap after daycare and fall asleep on my chest. Noah shadowed me everywhere. Even when I mowed the lawn, he followed right behind with his little plastic mower. I still remember bedtime routines, school plays, doctor visits, scraped knees, heartbreaks, graduations, every milestone. I wasn't perfect, but I was always there. Eventually, when they were 10 and 12, I formally adopted them. Jeremy, their biological father, never challenged it. We couldn't even track him down. I figured, good riddance. A man who vanishes doesn't get to claim a place in the lives he abandoned. Of course, life wasn't always smooth. Clara and I faced our fair share of struggles, especially when it came to finances. She stopped working around the time Ava entered high school, saying she needed time for her mental well-being. I respected her decision, even though it meant I had to take on longer hours at the shop. I made it work. I provided. I didn't complain, not even when Clara's affection started to fade and her phone became more of a priority than conversation at the dinner table. Then something changed about 5 years ago. Noah, who had just turned 20, started drifting away. Ava, 18 at the time, became cold and detached. I chalked it up to growing up, kids becoming independent, finding their own identities. I told myself they'd circle back. They always had before. What I didn't know was that Clara had rekindled contact with Jeremy. Out of nowhere, he had messaged her on Facebook, fresh out of rehab and apparently trying to get his act together. I didn't find out about it until almost a year later, when I came home early from work and overheard her talking to him on the phone. At first, I wasn't even mad. I just felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. Clara said she was only trying to be supportive. But when I asked why she kept it from me, she flipped it, accused me of being paranoid, of being insecure. A month after that, Noah packed up and moved in with Jeremy. The same Jeremy who never once showed up for a birthday suddenly decided to play dad. He bought Noah a used car, took him to a few games, and somehow that erased 2 decades of everything I'd done. Ava followed not long after. She even started calling him Dad in her social media posts. That one cut deep. I was the one who held her when she cried, who taught her how to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when she had the flu. But now I was just Leonard. Then came the final blow. Clara told me she wanted a trial separation. Said we'd grown apart. That maybe we had rushed into marriage all those years ago. 20 years later, she suddenly questioned everything. She moved out and stayed with a friend. Just like that, I found myself alone in the home I had built for all of them. The divorce followed not long after. She didn't fight me over assets. She didn't need to. The kids were already on her side. I kept the house, but it felt more like a shell than a home. 2 years passed. I didn't hear from Clara. Not from Noah. Not from Ava. Nothing. I threw myself into my work. Focused on my health. Took some trips. Even started quietly seeing someone new. Then, one night, my phone rang. I looked down. It was Noah. I stared at the screen in shock. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. He was frantic, desperate. He needed money. Apparently, Jeremy had roped both him and Ava into some guaranteed crypto scheme. A total scam. Jeremy vanished again, and this time, he took everything. They lost almost everything they had. Ava had even dropped out of college to pour everything into it. Clara had co-signed a loan to help them invest. Now the debt collectors were coming. And guess who they turned to for help? Me. I looked him in the eye and asked just one thing. Did he ever stay up with you after a nightmare and make you feel safe again? Noah froze. What? Was he there at those parent-teacher meetings when they said you were a handful, but also brilliant? Silence. Did he spend the night in an emergency room chair when Ava had that asthma attack? Still nothing. I did all of that. I showed up. And the second he reappeared with a fake smile and empty words, you tossed me aside like I was nothing. I paused, letting it sink in. So no, I'm not saving anyone. I was your father when it counted. But I'm not anymore. Then I ended the call. It's been a year since that night. I haven't heard from any of them since. Word eventually spread around town. Turns out, Jeremy didn't just vanish on them, he had left others in the lurch too. Clara lost her vehicle. Ava's working a low-wage retail job just to keep up with her loan payments. Noah's back under Clara's roof. They're barely keeping their heads above water. And me. I'm all right. I still think about them sometimes. I'll pass by a park and catch a glimpse of a father pushing a stroller and feel that dull ache in my chest. But I don't regret stepping away. You can't rescue people who willingly forget who truly stood by them. I raised those kids with every ounce of love I had. I didn't need to share their DNA to be their father. But apparently, DNA was all it took for them to forget what I meant to them. Now, they're finally learning what it feels like to be abandoned, just like their real father did to them. Just like they did to me. But this time, I didn't run. A few months after Noah's call, I heard a knock on my door. It was Ava. She stood there, arms folded, thinner than I remembered, her eyes shadowed and tired. Not the same confident young girl who once ran into my arms the day she won her school's writing contest. No makeup, no false bravado, just someone who had been through it. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I didn't respond. I simply stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room like it was some kind of memory museum, hesitant to touch anything. The house looked just like she'd left it. Same furniture. Same pictures on the wall. Her eyes landed on the framed photo from her first day of kindergarten. She stared at it like it was a ghost. "I miss this place," she whispered. I stayed silent. She lowered herself to the edge of the couch, hands trembling. Then suddenly, the tears came. "He said he'd take care of us," she cried. "He told us he'd changed. He said you only stuck around because you felt obligated, that you never really loved us." Her voice cracked. I believed him, Leonard. Every damn word. I had to fight the urge to fall apart right there. I was angry, she continued. At Mom. At you. At everything. I thought if I gave him a shot, maybe I'd finally understand why he left, why he came back. But he didn't change. He just found a new disguise. "He vanished again, didn't he?" I asked. She nodded, took the rest of the loan money and disappeared. Noah had to sell his car. Mom started drinking again. And me. I'm crashing on someone's couch, one that doesn't even belong to me. She wiped her face and looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "I don't expect anything from you. I know I don't deserve it. I know what I did. But there's something I need you to hear." She swallowed hard. You were the only real father I ever had. I just didn't realize it until it was too late. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. The betrayal still hurt. The abandonment still burned. But the anger, that had faded. What was left was something softer, sad, but calm. I still cared. Not in the boundless, unconditional way I once did, but in the way a man does when he knows he gave his best, and a small part of him still hopes they'll be okay. I didn't say much. I thanked her for being honest, but told her I wasn't ready to step back into the chaos. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said as she stood to leave. I needed to say that, before I couldn't anymore. At the door, she turned once more. If you ever feel like talking, or just sitting somewhere quiet, I'll be around. I'm not looking for forgiveness, just hoping that someday you'll believe I meant every word. And then she walked away. Epilogue, 2 years later. Time passed. Things changed. Ava eventually re-enrolled in college, picked up a part-time job shelving books at a nearby library. She moved into a shared apartment. Every few months, I get a handwritten letter from her, the real kind, on paper. No requests. Just updates. Gratitude. Noah. He's still distant. Still holding on to resentment. I don't know if that will ever change. Clara filed for bankruptcy. I heard through the grapevine. She's never reached out, and I doubt she ever will. As for me, I started over. I met someone new. We're taking it slow. But for the first time in a long time, I laugh. I feel peace. The house feels alive again. Sometimes I glance at the family photos still hanging on the walls and consider taking them down. But I never do. Because they're not just relics of pain, they're proof of who I was, and who I chose to be, even when no one else did. I wasn't their father by blood. But I was their father when it counted. And in the end, that's all that really matters.